Hello to all my dear friends. I wish you a peaceful, happy, and energy-filled new day. Today, on the Tu Huyen Single Mom channel, I want to share a story filled with upheaval, yet overflowing with human kindness. This is the journey of a single mother standing on the fragile line between immense gratitude and paralyzing fear. It is a tale of silent sacrifice and uncertain footsteps taken in the dark, all to secure two simple words for a young child: peace. We are about to step into the world of Tu Huyen, a place where tears mingle with sweat on construction sites, and where a hastily left letter can change the course of a destiny. I invite you all to listen and feel the depth of this journey. Inside the small room of Mr. Van's house, the rhythmic creaking of the hammock echoed like the ticking of a clock. Tu Huyen sat there, her eyes never leaving little Phuc An. For the past few days, the child had been suffering from a high fever, her tiny body burning and restless. Watching her daughter struggle to sleep, Huyen's heart constricted. She wasn't just worried about the illness. She was consumed by a paralyzing fear that the child's father would find them and take her away again. The gentle footsteps of the landlady broke the silence. She was preparing to attend a wedding far away and thoughtfully reminded Huyen, "I've left food and drinks in the fridge. Please help yourselves." She also mentioned that Mr. Van and Mr. Than were busy with a briefing at the office and wouldn't be back for dinner. The protection of this kind policeman's family was the most precious thing Huyen had received since being kicked out of her home. Alone in the quiet house, horrific memories began to haunt Huyen's mind. She remembered the days spent with her ex-husband, an alcoholic who refused to work and stayed intoxicated all day. The fits of rage, the constant verbal abuse, and the physical beatings she endured in front of her innocent child remained as unhealed scars. Looking at her daughter, Huyen wondered in agony, what will our future be? She understood that their current peace was fragile, for sooner or later, her ex-husband would track them down. Mr. Van's house grew silent after everyone had left. Tu Huyen looked at her daughter, Phuc An, who was fading from a fever, and felt a sharp pain in her heart. She realized she could no longer stay and burden her incredibly kind benefactors. With trembling hands, she found paper and a pen to write her farewell. In the letter, she expressed her sincere gratitude to the landlady and Mr. Van for helping them during their crisis. She confessed her terror that her ex-husband had discovered their location and would return to take the child away. "I must leave. Once my life is stable, I will return to visit you," she wrote, her words blurred by tears. Packing her few belongings, Huyen carried Phuc An away from the safe house before darkness fell. She walked aimlessly, her heart heavy with worry for their future and a lingering anxiety about Tuan, her ex-husband, who, despite causing so much suffering, might now be wandering hungry and thirsty. She stopped at a ruined, abandoned house to seek temporary shelter for the night. The image of the young mother huddling in a dark corner, hurriedly eating dry instant noodles to stave off hunger, deepened the gloom of the scene. The next morning, under the scorching sun, Huyen carried her child to look for work. She stopped at a construction site and pleaded for a job. Although the contractor hesitated Because of her small child, Huyen persisted. "I will let the baby sit while I work." Seeing the child sitting alone amidst piles of bricks while the mother labored was heart-wrenching. The first wages she received after dark were the only hope she had to buy milk for her daughter. Mr. Van's house had never been so quiet until the landlady returned with small gifts for the mother and daughter. The unusual silence worried her, and then she discovered a piece of paper placed on the table. It was Huyen's letter to her and Mr. Van, expressing infinite gratitude for helping them during their crisis. Huyen confessed her absolute terror that her ex-husband had found their location and would take Fusan away. She decided to leave to find work and live independently, promising to return once her life was stable. When Mr. Van returned from work and heard the news, he was extremely worried about the child being so young and decided to search for them immediately. Meanwhile, Tio Huyen had found a ruined, abandoned house to seek temporary shelter for the night. She sat alone in a dark corner, hurriedly eating dry how instant noodles to stave off hunger, her eyes clearly showing exhaustion and anxiety. Fukan, still tired from the fever, huddled in her mother's arms in the cold space of the doorless house. Huyen looked at her child, tears welling up as she thought about having nowhere to go or sleep through the night. Even in her desperate situation, Huyen's mind was torn by the image of Tuan, her abusive ex-husband. She worried whether he was wandering hungry or being hunted by the police. On one side was the pain of abuse. On the other was a conflicted compassion for her child's father, leaving the young mother's heart heavy with thoughts in the silent night. As soon as dawn broke, Tio Huyen carried Fukan through the streets in search of work. She stopped at a half-finished construction site and mustered the courage to ask for a job. The manager looked at her with concern. "We need workers, but how can you work with such a small child?" Huyen pleaded, promising to let the baby sit quietly in one spot so she could focus on her tasks. Touched by her situation, the manager agreed to arrange work for her. Throughout the long day, under the scorching sun, Huyen carried bricks and mixed buckets of mortar with stained hands. Not far away, little Fukan sat playing quietly in the shade, her innocent eyes following her mother's hard-working figure. Whenever she felt exhausted, just a glance at her child gave Huyen the strength to continue. As twilight fell, she received her first wages, money she would use to buy milk for her daughter. Meanwhile, Mr. Van spared no effort, searching through residential areas to find Huyen and her child. He hoped to find her, to encourage her to return, and to help her secure a more stable job so she wouldn't have to wander. However, amidst the vast crowd, the figures of the young mother and her infant remained nowhere to be found, leaving his heart heavy with worry. As night fell completely, Tio Huyen carried Fukan back to the abandoned house, her body exhausted after a day of hauling bricks. The meager wages in her pocket were her only comfort to buy milk for her child. However, as she approached the entrance, she froze, seeing a familiar figure waiting in the shadows. It was Mr. Van. He had searched throughout the residential area and finally found them based on directions from locals. Instead of reproaching her, Mr. Van looked at Huyen with deep sympathy. He mentioned that his mother at home was very worried and had prepared gifts for them. He advised Huyen against staying in the abandoned house because the living conditions were too precarious for a sick child. He promised to protect them from her ex-husband's harassment and help her find a stable, decent job rather than performing heavy labor at a construction site. Tu Huyen stood still on the line between self-respect and maternal love. On one side was the desire for independence to avoid burdening anyone. On the other was Fuxan's safety and future. She looked at the farewell letter she had written, then into the sincere eyes of the kind policeman. Fuxan's soft cry from hunger seemed to urge her to make a final decision. She nodded slightly, tears of happiness rolling down her cheeks. The story ends as the three figures disappear behind the streetlights, heading toward the warm house, leaving the painful past behind.
Thank you so much for watching today's video until the very end. Your presence is the greatest gift to me. Every view and every moment you spend here is a huge motivation for me to keep improving and releasing higher quality content in the future. Creating content isn't easy, but your silent support gives me the strength to stay creative every day. If you found today's video interesting and relaxing, please don't hesitate to give me a like. Your small actions are the most precious recognition of our team's hard work. And especially if you are new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any upcoming videos. The growth of this channel depends so much on your support. Let's build a civilized and connected community together. Once again, thank you for your love.